Yo, what up? So, Mean Muggin Brian, back in effect. You know what it is. Listen, I came across a Facebook memory a couple of days ago, and it resonated with me because it was a prayer, and the prayer was in reference to people who are suffering from heart attacks and strokes, or someone who has survived a heart attack or a stroke, or the families of someone who passed away from a heart attack or a stroke. And basically it was a prayer for strength and support and guidance and just, healing a broken heart from losing that loved one, right? So I put that prayer, I shared that memory, and I started thinking, the memory was from January 23rd of 2012. So I started thinking, what happened at that time? What happened? What was significant about that day or the night before? Because at that time I was working nights for the police department. So I was like, what happened the night before that led to that prayer? And I could think of two instances in 2012 where I was working, and I went to a medical call. It wasn't on the same day, but there were two medical assistance calls, and I was the first person at both places. So the first one was, there was this family. They were from Woodward, and they drove from Woodward to Watauga because the dad was going to have a triple bypass surgery the next morning in Oklahoma City. And so they came to Watauga. They got a motel room. They went to the mom and son, who's about 8 years old. They went to Pizza Hut, and they got some food. I don't know what all they got, whatever, but they went to Pizza Hut. They got some food, and they got back to the motel room, and they ended up calling for a medical emergency. So I get there, and I go into the room, and I see this, fairly large man. He's wearing shorts or boxers, I can't remember what, but no shirt, no socks, no shoes, and he is soaking wet. His skin is clammy. He's still warm, but I don't know how to describe it. It was just, he was sweating, basically. So I see him, and I'm like, one, he still has, a flesh color to his skin, so he hasn't been without oxygen for very long. And his lips aren't blue, but he's very obese. So I get on my knees, I feel for a pulse, I can't feel one, and so I lean down, I check to see if he's breathing, if I can hear and feel if he's breathing, and I'm looking to see if there's a rise and fall in his chest, and I'm not seeing any of that. But what caught my eye, over my shoulder, on my right shoulder, I see this little boy is standing next to the bed in the doorway of the bathroom, and he's crying, and he sees me, we make eye contact, and he says, "Is my daddy gonna be okay?" And I immediately threw my eyes away from him and was like, I don't know. So I grabbed my radio, and I advised, he's unresponsive, no pulse, not breathing, started CPR. So I start CPR on him, and probably I get to like probably 15 chest compressions, and the door swings open, and I see this very familiar face in the doorway. And I look at him, and I shake my head, and he was like, "All right, we'll take over." And so they come in there, they get the whatever it's called, like the heavy mover bag or whatever, and they get that underneath him. They start hooking him up to everything. They start chest compressions, move him out the door. Meanwhile, like I'm getting all his information from the wife, his name, date of birth, social, what medicines he takes. She tells me that he's supposed to have triple bypass surgery in the morning. So I find out what doctor, what hospital, all this stuff. And so then I meet them at the hospital, and they confirm he is deceased. And so we, that's the end of that. I have to do a report on it. So I do my little report, and then I don't know how long between that one and the second one was, but so the second one, I remember getting a call. There's a residence up on Wyckoff, and there was an elderly woman, and her neighbor's with her. So I go in, I pull up, I go to the door, the screen door is wide open, or the screen door is open, the house door is the screen door is shut, the house door is open. There we go. And so I knock on the door, and the neighbor comes and opens it up, and she's like, "Man, she's just having a hard time breathing." So I go up to her, and I'm like, "Hey, what's going on? What's happening?" And she's like, just really shallow, just, "I can't breathe." And I'm like, "Okay, all right." So I asked the neighbor, like, what's her name, age, do you know her date of birth, any of this information? EMS is on the way, since you're up, we just got to keep you up, right? And so while I'm talking to her, and I said something that I thought she took it as funny, because whenever I said I don't remember what I said, but I said something, and her response was, "Huh." And she sat there for a brief second, and I remember looking at her, and then seeing her lean forward, and then fall on the floor. And I tried to catch her. I think I caught her head, rolled her over onto her back, checked her for a pulse. She wasn't breathing. Now I didn't realize it at the time, but as time went on, I came to realize that wasn't that was literally her taking her last breath. She breathed out her last breath, and it was as quick as, and it was it. It was over. I started CPR, door opens up, and I see it was a female EMT comes in, and then I see that same familiar face, and he comes in and he goes, "Brian, what's happening?" And I was like, she just quit breathing. She took her last breath. I started CPR. As soon as she hit the ground, I don't know. So they take over to get her to the hospital. She's dead on arrival. So yeah. So I started thinking, it's crazy how you see a memory, or you see a sentence, paragraph, whatever, and it clicks in your mind like, I remember when, It's crazy how that happens. And that was one of those things, like why did I write this post on this day at this time? What was happening? It had to be something significant enough to, one, get to become that post. And I don't know if it was one of those days of, one of the days that those two incidents happened. I don't know. It could have been, it could have not been. I have no idea. But I do know I've seen a lot of death. I've seen people die in my arms, or, in that case, just right in front of me. She was dead before my arms caught her, but it's just, you know, if you know someone in law enforcement or in the military or first responder, fire, EMS, whatever, just, you know, one, don't be so quick to judge, because I know everybody's going through a lot. Everybody has their problems or whatever. But think of the ones who come to your rescue. When you're having a crisis, whether it's a mental crisis, a medical crisis, or a physical crisis, somebody, you call someone. It could be a pastor, police officer, firefighter, or medic. But think of those people and think of what they actually go through on a daily basis, aside from their regular day-to-day life. This is a job. I know a lot of people that's like, well, they signed up for that. They knew what they were getting whenever they got into that situation. Not always, you know? Not always. A lot of people I tell stories to, they're like, man, that happened in Watauga? Man, that happened in Gary? What? There's no way. Those towns are too small. Y'all shouldn't be having those kind of problems. Yo, you don't know. You don't know what people go through. So to be so quick to judge somebody based on their profession or where they're from or what color they are, we all the same. So the reason why I wanted to make this video was that Facebook post. I hadn't thought of this person I think about him often because I see his posts and stuff, and I'm always thinking like, man, I remember when this happened, when that happened. You know, whenever I was going through a bunch of stuff at the police department, there was one person that I talked to, you know, aside from the people that was actually going through those problems with me. And so if you are from Western Oklahoma and you know Mr. Rick Garcia, give him a shout out. Tell him hi. How you doing? How your mama doing? And you know, and if you have somebody in your life that's like that, like I would say, in those instances, I was relieved to see him approach me or walk through that door. I knew that regardless of what the situation was, everything was going to be okay. Because I don't know if it was just because he was there, or, you know, I felt like I lost these people. You know, it was a professional thing, but to me, I took it personal. I didn't realize at the time, but going through therapy and stuff, like, I'm starting to, you know, acknowledge. I'm not being so hard on myself. I'm acknowledging that, yes, this terrible thing happened and I was involved with this terrible thing. Although I tried everything I could to save a life, you don't save them all. You can't save them all. And that was something I learned in crisis negotiations. You can't save them all. Even though you do everything that you can, and you might think that you did your best. I heard a speaker talk about how he negotiated with the guy who just killed a bunch of people, and he thought that he got through to him because he agreed to do this and do that and whatever. But then whenever it actually came down to it, he ended up taking his own life. So whenever I say you can't win them all, you cannot win them all. You're gonna lose some. And if you're new to your profession and as a first responder, just know that it's gonna happen. So, you too. Bye. So, yeah, just keep that in mind. You're good. It's gonna happen. It's not a matter of will it happen. It's when it happens. Because it will. 100% it will. So, yeah, that's my story. Love, peace, chicken grease. Holla at your boy. Just picked up my kid from school. We going home and we gonna chill. All right, I'm out.